Hello, and welcome to Central Booking, where writers and readers are the authority. I'm your host, John Valeri. Today on Central Booking, it's Crime, Cats, and Ice Cream Cones with Meri Allen. Meri is the author of The Rocky Road to Ruin, the first entry in the Ice Cream Shop Mysteries. The book introduces protagonist Riley Rhodes, a travel food blogger and librarian at the CIA, who returns to her hometown of Penniman, Connecticut, where she takes over managerial duties at Utterly Delicious, at least temporarily. Murder, missing persons, arson, and a whole lot of ice cream making ensue in this cozy caper. Meri Allen is the pseudonym of Connecticut author Shari Randall. A former librarian and military wife, Shari wrote the popular Lobster Shack mysteries, the first of which, Curses Boiled Again, won the Agatha Award for Best First Novel. Two books followed, and heroine Allie Larkin features in an original short story included in the new collection, Murder on the Beach. The Rocky Road to Ruin takes things from savory to sweet, but not without a subtle touch of sinister. Booklist enthused, delightfully framed by the details of making ice cream and running an ice cream shop, this cozy mystery series starter is populated with well-drawn characters living in a vividly described New England town. Now, we're going to get the scoop straight from Meri Allen herself, and I'm sure you'll agree that she's the cherry on top of this ice cream sundae. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Central Booking. Today, I am delighted to be in the virtual company of Meri Allen, who is the author of The Rocky Road to Ruin. I love that title. It is the first in the Ice Cream Shop Mysteries out from St. Martin's Paperbacks right now. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, John. I'm so happy to be here with you.
Oh, thank you. I am delighted to have you here. And so, right off the bat, I want to clear up a mystery because discerning readers might look at your face and say, hey, she looks an awful lot like award-winning author Shari Randall. So I wonder if you might just quickly tell us about your dual identities and why these ice cream shop mysteries appear under the name Meri Allen, which is actually pretty customary in publishing.
Actually, it is, and it was a total surprise to me when my publisher asked me to do it, but it boiled down to what they said was new series, new name. And there is a little different feel to this series than my original one. I like to say the first series, the Lobster Shack Mysteries, were a little bit more, Murder, She Wrote. And these are a little bit more Midsummer Murders. So just a little bit more of a wink in them. And a little different feel. So that's why we decided to go with that.
Sure, and that's a really interesting distinction, to make between the two. I think that really will give readers a good idea of what they're in for, regardless of which books they pick up. I like that. So speaking of secretive identities, that lends itself really well to a discussion of your new protagonist, who is Riley Rhodes. So she is not only a food blogger, a traveling food blogger, but a librarian at the CIA, and also she's been sort of a secret operative. So I'm wondering if you can just tell us how this background gives her both help and hindrance when it comes to her new life as an amateur sleuth.
A lot. I have to say, she was such a fun character to play with because she's much more exciting than I am. First of all, sometimes this happens to me where I meet my characters. I was at a conference. I'd started writing the book. And a woman, it was in a big crowded cafeteria, and a woman joined me and some friends at our table. And we all were wearing name tags at this conference. It was a library conference. And I noticed that she just had her first name on her badge, not her full name. And so I asked her about it, and she flipped her badge over, and she was recruiting for the CIA library, which was really, I kind of just had this moment like, oh my gosh, life and art are coming together here.
Right.
Yeah, but I just thought about this character who, if you work for an organization like that, you cannot talk about your job at all. It's someone who might be a little bit on the secretive side, although Riley is a very warm-hearted person. I think she really enjoys the fact that she was recruited to do a few special little, what she calls them, projects during her travels. And one of them goes rather spectacularly wrong. I won't do any spoilers, and kind of kicks off the first book. But yeah, librarians are good at research, and they're good at keeping secrets. They're not supposed to talk about what people tell them. So, you kind of multiply that by her CIA background, and you've got a lady who has a lot of secrets.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought, what a great background for, someone who's going to be sort of the Jessica Fletcher of her hometown.
And yeah.
It's great. So in the Rocky Road to Ruin, she does return to her fictional hometown. And let me see if I get this right. Is it Penniman or Penniman, Connecticut?
Penniman. And
Okay.
that just came to me too. There is no Penniman, Connecticut. I checked. It's
Right. I like the name. And so I wanted to ask you, first of all, can you tell us a bit about the circumstances that draw her back home? And then also a bit about the murder investigation that she finds herself very much involved with very quickly. It's an
right.
eventful homecoming.
Yeah, it was. This poor woman has this terrible professional disaster in Italy. A nice place anyways. She comes home, she hears that her best friend Caroline's mom has passed away. And Caroline's mom owns the utterly delightful ice cream shop in Penniman, Connecticut. It's a real town institution. So it's a very bittersweet reunion. And while she's back home, she's taking some time and spending time with Caroline at the farm where the ice cream shop is. And so some of these people from her youth and her high school years are all back also, because they came back for the funeral, including Caroline's brother. And like some unlucky siblings, Caroline and her brother simply do not get along very well. And since they've inherited not only the ice cream shop, but this farm and all this great property that's worth a lot of money, they immediately start butting heads. And so you can kind of see where this is going, as far as things that might happen to characters in murder mysteries.
Sure. And so something I thought I would ask you too, and I don't know, it's probably pretty common in mysteries, and I'm not sure if it's just more on my radar in the last year or so, but something I found really interesting when I read books is the idea of adult characters returning home to a place and to people that they knew as children, but they're sort of seeing that through new eyes. And I was just wondering if you can talk about that perspective and how that also sort of pertains to Riley's homecoming.
Yeah, the old saying, you can't go home again. She does, and some things are the same. I mean, the town is the same beautiful little New England town. But as we all know, if we've gone to a reunion, people that you had kind of made your mind up about might not be the same person that you remember. They might, and actually you might talk about things that happened and get a totally new perspective and just realize that you might have been wrong about something also. So that happens a little bit with Riley. She has to really start digging into, part of her investigation involves digging into things that happened about 15 years earlier, about the time she left Penniman. And there are some people who stayed behind, and some of those people are the same, but some have definitely changed, and some are definitely not the people that she remembered. So
Sure.
Yeah, so is that happening a lot in books now?
There's just a couple that I've read recently where that sort of stuck with me, and I just thought, oh yeah, it's really interesting to take somebody and put them in a setting that they knew, and then they went away for a while and came back and sort of saw it through a different lens. And it was funny because, one of the things I found myself relating to is Riley comes home, and so she's interacting with all these adults that she knew as a child, so they were parental figures or authority figures or teachers, and now they're sort of on the same level. And and she struggles with, what do I call them? She doesn't want to call them by her first name. And I really related to that because, I went to the Portland Middle School here in Connecticut, and then I worked there for a couple of years, and it was a lot of the same teachers, and they'd be like, you can call me Rita now. And I'm like, I can't. You will forever be Mrs. S to me. I cannot call you Rita as
I can
much
never
as I
call
love
you by your first name.
It's just
It's
so
so
weird.
true. And that's happened to me too. It is just so awkward. It's and that you're, like you said, you can relate to them on this level, but you really can't ever take that leap.
Yeah, no, it was just funny. But so you mentioned the Utterly Delicious Ice Cream Shop, which I love the name, and it really is just sort of a fun place to visit for a while. And so basically she takes over management duties, at least temporarily, we'll see, while her best friend Caroline is sort of going through all these things that she's going through and managing to still have a job, that's outside of this little town. So obviously, this means that you have to have sort of an intimate knowledge of ice cream, and not just eating ice cream, which we all love, but making ice cream, selling ice cream. There's a whole business aspect to it. So I'm wondering if you can talk a bit about the research, that you need to do to make this business viable in the book.
Oh my gosh, it was just grueling, John. Let me tell you, going. I am so lucky. I did lobster shacks with my first series, and now ice cream. It's just
right. You know how to pick them.
And it was so much fun. I love immersing myself in research. I mean, it's that library background. I love doing that and traveling. So I dragged my husband. I drag him everywhere. But we did our ice cream tour up what they call the quiet corner of Connecticut. You probably know this area, that northeast corner, super quiet. And they have some of the best ice cream shops ever up there. They're just tucked away. And I had such a great time. I'll give you some names later. But yeah. But anyway, so picking up the vibe of the place, because I wanted it on a farm. And also, boy, is there a lot of science that goes into ice cream. I'll just mention, I spent one wedding reception with this lovely man who it turned out worked at a dairy and was able to explain to me how dairies will make certain mixtures of milk and cream, certain percentages of each, to make certain flavors shine. So if you want more of a rich vanilla kind of thing, you're going to have more cream and less milk. And if you want something lighter, you have more milk and less cream. So I learned about that. There's a wonderful ice cream business called Jenny's. I'm a big fan because she's very scientific about the ice cream. And so I won't go into it too much, but you can watch her online. And she talks about things like volatilizing flavor, which is what happens when your tongue comes in contact with the ice cream. And it just, it's that moment where you get that creaminess and that flavor. Right. It's very, for me, eating ice cream is very zen, because when you are eating ice cream, you are just enjoying it, right?
Oh yeah, it's whole experience.
You're just not thinking about anything else but that ice cream. So, yeah, I kind of threw myself into that research, and we bought ourselves an ice cream maker.
Oh, nice. And it's so funny because, you think, oh, it's ice cream, it's great, but like, how much do you need to know? But you really do. When you're writing a book like this, you need to know a lot about a little, or a little about a lot. You know what I mean? There's so much that goes into it. And not to bring everything back to Murder, She Wrote, but it's funny, I was watching an episode, there was a rerun on the other week, and it was about ice cream and like hormones and ice cream, and it was like Gary and Larry's instead of Ben and Jerry's, and it was just kind of fun. So people might want to look that up too. It would go really well with reading this book.
Yeah, I want to watch that episode. Okay, I'm going to write it down.
There you go.
Gary Larry's, okay.
And we should tell people too, there are recipes in this book. Like if you flip to the back, I mean, there's Buzzy's Ultimate Frozen Margarita ice cream, and you get the sunflower ice cream. So, as if you're not just getting a great mystery, you will be able to make it for yourself. And after reading all about it, you're probably going to want to. Like, I was very intrigued by the sunflower ice cream, and now I realize that I can make it. So.
Yeah. Do you have an ice cream maker at home? That's the only thing that can be kind of, hard.
I'm going to go looking for it. We did it one time. So, it's worth a try, right?
Fun. Yeah.
But yeah, it's great because you can have like a whole immersive experience. And so I wanted to ask you too, so the book is a cozy, of course. And so we kind of expect that the human characters will have sort of four-legged counterparts. And there are some very distinct animals in this book, including two cats. We have Sprinkles and Rocky. So I'm wondering if you can just tell us a little bit about, the feline characters and how you give them such distinct personalities, because, they really, really do come alive on the page, and they do serve a very distinct purpose. They're just a lot of fun. They're like great little sidekick characters.
Thank you. I made the ultimate cozy mistake with my first series. I had no pets in it. So I had to rectify that mistake. And
the lobsters didn't count.
No, they didn't count. So I have these cats, and I really wanted, I'm thinking about being on a farm. So of course you have farm cats. And Rocky is a rescue. Riley's out running and she finds this little black kitten who's just been through it. He has scars and he's malnourished. And so she takes him in and he turns out to be very, very adventurous. He gets into lots of scrapes. And the cats do not help solve the murder, but they are always around and they are nosy and they kind of point in a direction, maybe. I'll say that. So anyways, for contrast, Caroline's mom owned Sprinkles, who was a Persian, one of the great masses of fluff and bad temper that you can sometimes have in a cat. She is just, the Gloria Swanson of cats. She was kicked off the cat circuit. She was a show cat. She was kicked off the circuit for bad behavior. And so she does have some pretty bad behavior still. And the thing that's fun with the cats is that I can do characterization. You have these cats with certain personalities and they like certain people or don't like certain people. And as you know, if you have a pet, and usually dogs will like everybody, but cats are pickier. Definitely.
Yeah, it was funny. I mean, Sprinkles is very endearing in her own way, and she definitely has some unique and fun little quirks. Yeah. And she really got me thinking about, my aunt had a black cat named Ebony, and this cat lived for 20 some odd years, black cat with bright green eyes. And we really thought this cat was the devil. Like she used to have to keep a spray bottle and a cane at the front door because it would attack if you were walking in the apartment. And it's sort of the ongoing joke in the family that was the best defense from visitors because nobody ever wanted to go there. So Sprinkles is not that bad. I feel
that completely.
But I digress, because I tend to do. But I wanted to ask too, speaking of cozies, I think a lot of times, people take for granted how difficult they can be to write because there are a certain set of rules and you really have to straddle a very fine line. So I'm wondering if you can talk about what the rules are for a cozy and if you find them challenging, if you find that they challenge you to be more creative, or if it's a combination of the two.
Gotcha. Yeah. Cozies do have these rules. The most basic ones are, as we mentioned with Murder, She Wrote, you don't have any foul language. You could say somebody swears, but you can't say what they actually say. And you can't have any sex on the page. Things can happen, but not on the page. You don't spell anything like that out.
Now the door just closes.
The door closes, the waves crash. Yeah.
Yep, it's the end of the chapter. And then it's the next morning.
The page turns, yeah. So and then the gore was another thing. I had a scene in this, and again, I love my research. I'm like, look at my scarf is falling now. I love my research, and I did all this forensic research, and I love using that. And then my editor said, nope, we can't use this. So, go back in and cross things out and rework them a little bit. So, so yeah, it is that fine line, but I really think about my reader and what their expectations are. And one thing I love about cozies is that people of so many ages can read them. I mean, I have grandmas read them, and I have a little 10-year-old fan somewhere. So I keep her in mind,
she's your conscience.
She is. She sits on my shoulder. Oh, Cammie. But oh, Cammie, your mom's letting you read these books. Oh dear. But so yeah, so you do have those kind of parameters, and then the tropes. You have the tropes about the beautiful small town, because of course we want to sink in. That's the word cozy, into this perfect setting. And the thing that is very important about a cozy is that you want justice to be served. Right, so right. I can't do any, oh, that's the way life is, and leave some threads hanging. You will get mail if you do that. You will get a lot of mail if you do that. So, so personally, I love playing with all that. I love playing with the tropes. I like kind of turning them over and finding an interesting twist on them. For example, in this book, sometimes in a cozy, the main character will date the police chief, but instead I have the police chief starts to fall for her best friend. And Riley, that puts her in a very bad situation because she doesn't want to mess things up for her friend. So how is she going to find information? So she has to go in a different direction. She finds Tilly, who helps her. Yeah, so for me, some people think, oh, you're in a straitjacket, but you just have to kind of Houdini your way out of these things sometimes. And it really does open some very creative doors for me. So I have fun with it.
Well, that's great. You can tell. And I have to say, it really was refreshing to have a protagonist in one of these books, like you said, who does not fall for, the police officer, the detective. It was great. And I actually said, oh my gosh, like she's not doing what 9 out of 10 books do, which was terrific.
Not doing it. Uh-oh.
Oh, I know, right? Subvert that. So I wanted to come back to setting for a moment too, if you don't mind. I'm just wondering if you wouldn't mind sharing how you feel that place informs plot. And then, since you created this fictional community, can you talk about the considerations, that you took into account when you were doing that world building? Because it is a really, immersive experience, and it does come alive as a very palpable place, even though it's, fictional.
Thank you, John. I love travel, and I love just exploring the back roads, especially in New England. And I love talking to different readers. They have this picture of New England. And it's so, for me, because I'm a native, I know what it's like here. They're in love with it. The whole, the Murder, She Wrote, and the little villages. And it's the same way I feel about the Cotswolds in England. I've been to England, but not the Cotswolds. I'm dying to go someday. But as far as informing the book and the feel of it, you have these villages that look so perfect on the outside, but then underneath you have all these little dark secrets, especially when you have people who have lived in the same town all their lives. Right. And not only that, but their parents lived in the same town and their grandparents. And so you have these animosities maybe, or grudges, or other relationships that go back a long way. And that makes for a really opportunities for rich characterization and also plot points. So these little towns are just so fun. Like I mentioned, Midsummer Mysteries, or Agatha Raisin set in her Carsley. I don't know if you've seen that one. But yeah, these beautiful places. And then also you have that tension between the people who have lived there forever and the new people coming in or coming back. And so that's another thing that I can play with a little bit. I kind of, talking about the setting, actual physical setting, there's a little town called Pomfret in Connecticut. I don't know if you've driven through there. It's
I've heard of it. I don't know if I have either.
You kind of blink and you miss it. I know I'm on the right track if Hallmark makes a movie using that town, and they did. So that was very encouraging to me when I saw this movie, and I said, oh yeah, I know that place.
Okay. Right, yeah. That's funny. I mean, I always find that I'm more drawn to, the mysteries that are set in a small town, because I mean, if you want intrigue and secrets, like, you don't need a big city. There's so much anonymity there. There is no anonymity in a small town. I was born in small town USA. I'm back in small town USA. It's very relatable, and you can't even go to the gas station, without running into
somebody's going to recognize you.
Yeah, and it's always when you haven't showered or shaved and looking your worst.
You're wearing your sweats.
Yeah, yep. All right, so I wanted to ask you too. So Meri Allen's biography says that she likes to haunt used bookstores, and not coincidentally, Riley's father owns a used bookstore, which is part of the backdrop of this series. So I'm wondering if you can just, talk a little bit about the unique charms of a used bookstore, because I think, anybody who's been in one, they all have sort of their own identity, and I love that, being a fan of used bookstores myself. So can you talk about your experiences in used bookstores and why you wanted to make that a part of this series?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I do just love spending time in used bookstores. There's one not too far from here in Niantic. Have you been to the Book Barn?
Yes.
It's incredible. And
there's Dave's there.
Definitely. They have 3 separate buildings. I mean,
Yeah, it's great.
it's crazy. I could go really crazy there. So I just, there are a couple of reasons why I did want to have that, because I kind of, a little part of me that would really like to have a mystery series set in a bookshop. So hello, St. Martin's, maybe I'll get that one someday. You know, the whole world of books is so much fun. And she was a librarian, so I did want to have the book thing. I also, my folks, we have a family antique store. And so it's, again, just the idea of being in that kind of setting. I think you think about older things, antiques, old books, and they each have a story. So again, you know, here I am, it's just so easy to think of, you know, the story of a, you know, maybe a used book that Riley's dad comes across, and that could have some kind of mystery about it. I do love books, a mystery set in bookstores. Same. And about, you know, literary things. So that's kind of my fun too in there. I know ice cream, used books. It's got, my second book has a castle in it because I wanted a castle.
It's like you're checking a lot of my boxes too.
All the fun stuff. Yeah, all the fun stuff.
Oh, there's so much for people to relate to, which I think is terrific. And so, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't ask you about the importance of libraries and librarians. The book is dedicated to libraries and librarians, and you were a librarian. So can you talk, you know, a bit about your experiences as a librarian, how you wanted to pay sort of homage to that, and what you really see is, you know, the library or the librarian's role within their community?
Oh, absolutely. I'll just give you the children's librarian's mantra, which is literacy is not a luxury. I really, I get very passionate about libraries. I just, you know, I love reading stories about, I can't remember the author's name now, who basically he educated himself. It wasn't Isaac Asimov, was it? I can't remember. Anyways, yeah, I know. Well, I'll look it up later. But yeah, libraries are just so more important than people realize. I think a lot of people think they're a nice amenity. Oh, look, you can go get a free book. But they're actually really, really important for kids. And there are all kinds of studies. I won't go into it too much. But basically, children who have books in their home, and they don't even have to own the books, they will do better throughout their academic career. If you can just get books into the hands of little kids, you know, when they're 3, 4, younger than that even. So it's really one of the cheapest ways to help kids with their education, is just to support your library. So I could go on for hours. But they're community hubs. I think that we're going to find out in the future how important they really were, because everybody always says, oh, everything's on the internet. Oh, let me tell you, as a person who worked with teenagers who were doing research for their homework, they tend to just look up something. They take the very first thing that pops up, and it's usually an ad. So, oh, you just think, oh boy, they really need to do some more information literacy classes. I guess that's yeah. So yeah, I love my libraries, and that dedication. I'm so glad you read it. You read the dedications too.
Oh my gosh, I love dedications, acknowledgments. Sometimes they're as exciting as the books, you know.
Yeah. Oh yeah, there are some good ones there. But that was to my coworkers at the Kingstown Library in Alexandria, Virginia. I miss
how great is that? And, you know, and it made me think too how important the library was. I don't know if I would be the reader, you know, that I am. I'm sure I wouldn't have. And when I think back, you know, they were my first enablers. Like, you want to take that whole stack of books, you go for it. I mean, where else do you get that? And I have to, yeah, and I have to think, you know, librarians are kind of like detectives or sleuths. Like, there's a whole skill set there that seems pretty transferable. I would bet.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And people tell us things. This is, and another thing, I mean, librarians are not supposed to, obviously, you know, they're supposed to protect their patrons' privacy. And we do. But I've always been kind of amazed at the questions that people would ask. Very personal things. You know? Like when they come from the doctor and they'll say, oh, my doctor told me I have this, but he didn't tell me what it meant. And you just go, oh, dear. Oh dear. Yeah. No,
Those are the
that's
nights you drink more than tea, something a little
yeah.
stronger. Oh, oh, geez. So, all right. So I have to, ask you, you mentioned that is Shari Randall who you really are, I think.
Yes.
You've also written the Lobster Shack Mysteries, the first of which won an Agatha Award. So I wanted to ask you, one, and you already mentioned that you learned from, that experience that you, of course, have to have some kind of cozy critter, in your series. But is there anything else that you learned from writing those books that made creating these books easier?
Oh boy, that's a really good question. I think I did learn something, and it made me realize that I kind of made a little mistake with this second series. Story arcs are very important over cozies because you want to see growth with the character. So I kind of had in the second book, my character grew a little fast. I wish I had just pulled out this one particular story thread a little bit longer. You're right. It's always a process of learning, always. And you don't learn until the book leaves your hands. And
Right.
that's very difficult sometimes because you just think, oh, I wish I had done this. I wish I had done that. Um, I the one thing I really liked was you'll like this. Sprinkles has an entire character arc in book 2.
Oh, that's great.
There's growth with that cat.
Even the cats have growth. That's terrific.
Yeah, they have growth. Yeah, and the importance of those supporting cast. I
Right.
think with a cozy, it is, I keep drawing comparisons, and you do too, to TV shows. But
Right.
that's why you tune in.
It's
You want to
true.
see what happens to them. I've had people say, "Oh, these characters feel like friends. You want to hang out with them," and that's something you really want to happen.
Right.
I love doing the twisty plots too. That I gave a little nod to Agatha Christie in book 1, and I do in book 2. I think I might do that in all the books. I don't know, but yeah, I just it's just fun, that fun combination of your cast and then trying to play the game with your reader.
Right.
All
Yeah,
of
and if
that.
you don't care about the characters, then the twists don't really matter as much. Uh,
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
and talking about readers relating to characters and coming to know them almost as friends, uh, people who really took to Allie Larkin, who was the protagonist of that first series. I just wanted to ask you because she features in a pretty new short story. So I'm wondering if you can tell us about that and where readers can find it if they want to revisit her.
Yeah, thank you. I
Sure.
didn't even know we'd talk about that. Oh, hang on. I just happen to have a book here.
This is great.
I I got my start writing short stories. I was in a Sisters in Crime anthology, and that kind of helped me get my book deal for the series. But anyways, Murder on the Beach has an original Lobster Shack mystery short story. I was so happy to bring back Allie and Aunt Gully and her friends for a little mystery outing, and writing a short story is so different than a novel.
Right.
So I think short stories are great. I mean, especially at the beach. You can read a story and then go
Absolutely.
take a dip and come back and read a different one. But it was so much fun to go back to those characters. So that's actually going to be a series. There's going to be Murder in the Mountains, and
Oh, great.
I'll get to bring back Allie and some other characters in that one. I think that comes out next spring.
Well,
So
that's going to make some readers very happy. That's
yeah, I did. It's funny. I just got an email from a reader asking about the Lobster Shack, and I miss them too. So we'll see what happens. But for now, Riley and I are having a lot of fun together.
I was going to say it's there's great food. You've sort of gone from savory to sweet, but I mean, it's all
Yeah,
delicious.
what do I do next? Like I don't know, winery? Trying to think, chocolate shop.
Oh, see, so many ideas.
Yeah, I have to think about this one.
You do.
Or
So I'm
maybe
going to
the
ask
used bookshop. I don't know.
a bookshop slash winery. I always thought it would be fun. My friends used to have a little bookstore called Books and Booze, but it was BOOS, and their mascot was a little ghost. But I always thought it would be fun if it was like liquor booze, like a little bar with a bookstore.
Oh my gosh, that's so great.
That
Oh,
lend itself well to mysteries.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And, you know, if everybody's inebriated, then you have to figure out whose memory is correct and all that stuff.
You have to write that one, John.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe. You heard it here first. So I want to ask you too. So obviously you were a book lover and you have been for a while. So I'm going to ask you to look back. Can you tell us what inspired your love of storytelling and how your reading life has influenced your writing life?
Oh, wow. That's a really good question. I always say that the gateway drug for me to mysteries was Nancy Drew.
Same.
Nancy Drew was just my favorite thing in the world. She was so independent and she had her own car. She, you know, and the boyfriend was there when she needed him and he wasn't when she didn't, you know, it was, she had these great chums. So Nancy definitely, yeah, was the first one. But I also, it's funny, I can still remember our school librarian, this wonderful lady, Mrs. Macri, reaching up and getting this book for me off a high shelf. I wasn't very old. And she said, I think you might like this. And it was the Sherlock Holmes stories, which is another thing that I totally love. I wish I had more time. You know, the bucket list, someday maybe I can be a Sherlockian, you know, but that takes a lot of work. You have to really know your Sherlock Holmes to be a Sherlockian. But that just kind of set me on that path. Although I read everything, I have to say I'm in 3 book clubs, which is way too much.
Wow, that's
yeah.
amazing.
But I read different things, and that's
Right.
a good thing. You know, you can't. Especially if you write and then you read a lot of mysteries, you start to see behind the curtain a little.
Right.
You probably do.
I know what you mean.
Yeah, it'd be hard to surprise you. So you know, it can be a little bit more like work if you're reading a mystery sometimes, which is really kind of sad.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so I like everything. I mean, if I made a list of some of my favorite books, I mean, I even have a zombie book on there as one of my favorite books of all time. So yeah, the Angels Are the Reapers by Alden Bell. It's a great book. Great book.
I'm taking a lot of notes tonight.
Yeah, it's a quick read. It's like if Flannery O'Connor wrote a zombie apocalypse book.
Wow, that'll sell it, you know?
Yeah, it's great. So anyway, so yeah, then I read all these different things for book club, and yeah, I don't know. There's not enough time to read everything we want to.
I'm so happy to hear that you're still able to read, though. It's funny, but so many people I talk to, like, they're so inundated with deadlines that they've sort of not been able to do pleasure reading, and it hurts my soul. And I think that one of the reasons that I don't write a lot of fiction is because if I have the choice between writing and reading, like, I can't give up the reading. But you give me hope because you do both.
It's so true. I keep thinking, am I a reader with a writing problem or a writer with a reading problem? I don't know. One of
But
those.
why discriminate? You can have both.
All of them. So it's but I cannot read mysteries while I'm writing. Just don't want to, can't do it. I can't do that. It has to be something really different.
Right.
Yeah, science fiction, or a biography, maybe something like that. Yeah. Sure. It's hard. I know a lot of people said during the pandemic they had a hard time reading, and that happened to me too. I don't know what happened. I started watching TV, which is awesome. There's some great mystery TV shows out there, so it wasn't too bad.
Yeah, you know, that's happened to a lot of people I know as well too, and some like voracious readers, and I felt an immense sense of relief that did not happen to me, because I don't know, I would be even less sane than I am. But I had like the opposite response. I found myself staying up to hours I hadn't seen since I was probably in college. Like I would look over and it would be 2:30 in the morning, and I'd be like, you got to put yourself to bed, man. You have to be up real soon. But I don't know. I think the escapism, even though the things I tend to read, you know, there's a lot of murder and mayhem, but at least it exists in a fictional world versus, you know, what we all experience every day. But there is really, really good TV out there.
Absolutely.
All right, so I might be opening Pandora's box here. It's funny, every time I ask this question, and I really don't ask it that often, but people say everything that they would have answered just sort of whoop flies out of their mind. But you say that you read a lot, not just mystery. And I'm the same way. Whenever I don't have to read a mystery, because I read so many of them, I'll read poetry, I'll read just something completely different. But is there anything that you've read recently that's really stuck with you and you would recommend to others who either generally, or people who are specifically fans of your books, things that maybe your readers might enjoy?
Oh, wow. This is hard. Because I always want to be careful. I read a lot of friends' books, and then I'm afraid, like, I recommend one, and then, oh, I don't want to leave somebody out. But two things. One, I go sometimes for a comfort read. I'll read things that I loved from a while back, and I often go back to the Mrs. Polifax books by Dorothy Gilman. I don't know if you're familiar.
I've heard of them. I haven't read them. I might have to.
They're just pure fun, and they're a little, actually, my Riley character is a little nod to them, because Mrs. Polifax, these books were written, I think, in the 70s or 80s, is this senior citizen who is recruited to work for the CIA because she's, who would ever believe that she could be a spy, right? So they're fun, they're light, and they're great cozy readings. So I always recommend them. And then my book club did this book that I love, but it's so weird. It's called Mexican Gothic, and the writing is beautiful. I haven't read an author in a long time. I can't remember her name. I wish I could. Where I just fell in love with the way she writes. So, but it's horror, and I will warn people about that. A lot of the reviews didn't mention that. But the end will kind of go in a very crazy direction, people, so be warned. But her prose is beautiful, and her character. So those are two.
Wow, that's interesting. There's this little group of writers, and occasionally we get together and we do virtual happy hours, and we did one last night, and they were talking about that book.
You're kidding.
Oh, and it's so wild. Somehow it wasn't on my radar, and now 2 nights in a row, people are, extolling the virtues of that. So yet another book I will have to check out. But that's a pretty good endorsement between you and them. So it's
what did they say about it?
They were just saying the same thing, that it was unexpected. It was very immersive. It was really beautifully written, but sort of creepy. And it just sounded unlike pretty much, it just sounded like a very unique reading experience.
It is. The end, to quote one of my book club friends, is crazy pants.
Crazy pants. It's my favorite genre, crazy pants. Also a nickname. All right, so a few more questions, and then I will let you get back to your evening and maybe your pleasure reading, perhaps some ice cream, I don't know. But I always ask for, people who are looking for some words of wisdom, and looking back and in speaking to a creative life or a writing life, can you tell us what you think it is, the best advice that you've ever been given, and then the best advice that you were never given and sort of had to learn for yourself through the experience of writing?
Wow. Wow. I'll tell you that the thing I learned for myself is, I tell everyone this, is join Sisters in Crime. That's a writers group. Don't be scared if you're not a woman.
No, you can be a Mr. Sister. Okay.
Yes, exactly. They do such terrific craft classes and networking. I really don't think I would be writing without them. They just have been so supportive. So just look them up online, sistersincrime.org. The other advice that someone gave me, let's think. I think that, I don't know where I heard this, but I think that if you are writing, think of yourself as a writer. Think that what you're doing is important, and make time for yourself. That's very important. I think we're all pulled in so many directions, but if you want to write, close that door. That's your time. So yeah, think of yourself as a writer and give yourself permission to write.
Oh, I think that's terrific. And so many people don't. I mean, it sounds simple, but it's really not. I think there's like a whole psychology to that, and people can tend to be very dismissive of, oh, you want to be a writer, but what have you written? Or what would I know that you've written?
Oh yeah. So and it's hard, I think, especially for maybe parents, people with family responsibilities, to close that door. And but yeah, you have to stake out your little claim, your little room of your own sometimes.
Sure. Most excellent. And okay, so, we started with what's new. So now I'm going to ask if you can tease a little bit about what comes next. And you told us, you mentioned that book 2 in the Ice Cream Shop Mysteries is coming. So can you give us maybe a little teaser of that? Just a little
Yeah.
spoonful.
I wish I had the cover, but we have the title for the second book, which is called Mint Chocolate Murder. Yeah.
Delicious.
I think we're going for the ice cream flavors. That's what we're doing. But in that one, my little town of Penniman has an art colony. And that's where my castle comes in, which is based on Gillette Castle.
Oh, great.
Probably been to one of my favorite places. But anyways, the art colony is having an opening and they want to have a fantasy ice cream social. So that's how Riley ends up going over there and getting immersed in the murder. So yeah, and I think it's up for pre-order somewhere. It comes out next July. So,
wow. If you really want to be proactive, go click that button now.
Get in early. I think, July is National Ice Cream Month. So maybe that's why they go for that. Yeah, so that's what's coming next. But actually that book's been done for a while. I'm working on book 3 right now. No working title. I'm halfway done. And I'm sure all your other author friends tell you that you have to think back to that first book sometimes.
Yeah.
What did I write? What did I do? Yeah.
No, it's true, because I think a lot of times readers don't realize the amount of time that passes between you having written it and it being published. And there can very well be another book or two that's happened in the meantime.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's been a lot of fun. Book 2 was so fun to write, and this one is working out the same way. So it's been a blast. I'm so lucky. I just haven't figured out the ice cream flavor I'm going to highlight in book 3. Book 2, a lot of pumpkin spice.
Oh, that's like my favorite. All right. Yeah, it's the season.
Yep.
I was going to say, in the meantime, people can really savor this, but this is the kind of book that you kind of tear through. Even when you think you're going to read it slowly, you won't. It's a page turner. It is, of course, I will borrow your pun and say utterly delectable. And The Rocky Road to Ruin, you can get it right now. So thank you so much, Meri Allen. It was really terrific to talk to you tonight.
Oh, thank you so much, John. It's always fun to talk to you.
That's it for this episode of Central Booking. Thanks for watching, and be sure to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss a thing.